Hey guys, in this video, we are going to look at the highly sought after templating and column reordering feature for data grid control. Since data grid is a widely used control across all our customer base, a few enhancement requests have popped up during application development over the years. We have been addressing those requirements as we go along with each release, and in this release, the features we will be discussing is to help improve the end user experience by rendering data in a more visual manner. The first feature on this list is a column templating feature. Form developers can create visual elements and include scenario-specific content in the table such as graphs, icons, animations, progress bar, symbols, and any other custom content that one can insert using HTML and JavaScript, hence dynamically adapting the static or dynamic data in the table. Next in the line, we have introduced a visual mechanism to allow the form end users to rearrange the columns via drag and drop. Additionally, a caching feature has been implemented to remember the filtering sequence and the column ordering across form sessions. So next time the form page is loaded in the same browser, the end user's grid customizations or preferences are automatically preloaded and he does not have to redo those configurations again. Let's look at these features in action. So before we get started, I'm going to use one of my data entities over here called custom employee as a sample data set to render the values in the data grid. So it has name, country is a text as you can see, salary, age, target sales, employee rating is available which is a boolean, and employee photo which is a base 64 encoded string. I could have kept a URL to an external file repository as well. In my case, I've kept it as a base 64 encoded string, and the country flag image also is a base 64 encoded string in this case. Again, these could be loaded from an external repository as well. Now, before version 9 of the product, if I had to render it, I would have dragged and dropped the data grid control, bound it to my data entity. And once I do that, the data would have rendered something like this with the name, country, salary, age, target sales, employee rating, and is available as boolean. So pretty much static looking user experience with text fields is rendered. There are obviously integers and boolean values getting rendered, but those are all rendering as regular text. So it's a little bit difficult to visually interpret this kind of data. Now what we are doing is, with version 9 of the product, we are introducing a column templating feature with which you can represent the same data visually. So if you see, this is now my form preview, where name is rendered as an image along with the username, which is a hyperlink. Country has been changed to a flag icon, which is more visually distinguishable. Salary, I have added a dollar sign next to it. Age, I have kept it as regular integer, just like previously. Target sales, instead of showing it as a number, we are showing it as a progress bar, a spark line over here, along with the percentage. Employee rating, we have changed it to a star rating control, and the boolean value which you saw previously have been changed into an icon. So from here, the same data is now rendered in this way. Now, in order to achieve that, we have introduced something called as a column templating feature. So if you go put this grid in the edit mode, go to configure. As you can see, I'm doing a lookup against a data entity, in this case, against that employee table. And here are the columns which are available. I'm going to show you the templating feature, how it works. It is using the Kendo templating feature. As you know, our data grid control is based on top of Kendo. And if you go to the Kendo documentation, under templating, there is a whole lot of help topics which you can refer to for the templating syntax. The main things which you need to refer to is the templating syntax over here. There are three rules mainly. If you have to render a value as HTML, you will start it as hash equal to and then include whatever is the HTML and then close it with a hash sign. If you want to render it as a value, you would do hash colon whatever is the column name and then end it with a hash sign. And you can also put your JavaScript code, for example, a condition over here. So you started with hash, then your JavaScript code starts appearing over here if true, a Boolean condition. And then if you had to render a value, you can include it in a embedded hash statement over here. So those are the three rules. You can refer to Kendo documentation for more specific details. I'm going to use all these three rules in my demo. So the first column I'm rendering is employee name. Remember, it is just an employee name in my case. What I'm going to convert it to is a photo along with a hyperlink to that employee name. So I'm over here. This column is visible and you see a new checkbox, use custom template. The moment you check that checkbox, a new section opens up where you can provide your template. You can put it in a expanded view over here, and as you can see, here is the syntax I have written for my template. So I've created a linkable column ahref. In my case, I've just put a static link. It could be a dynamic link coming from one of your columns in the data entity. Then I have put two div tags over here, and within the div tag the value is actually coming from that hash colon syntax. Remember, hash colon, once I put that, it would get the value in an encoded format. So if I do say hash colon, it shows me all the columns available within my data grid, and I can just select whichever column I wanted. In this case, we selected employee photo. Similarly, next to it, we put another div tag called employee name. So we've combined two columns in one. The next one is employee photo. Now, if you see this one, I have rendered it as a hidden column. So I have marked visible as false. The value of this was used in the previous template. If you remember over here, I used the value of this column in this particular template. So I've rendered the employee photo as a hidden column. The third one is country. Now, if you remember, country was a base 64 encoded string. So I've rendered it as an HTML hash equal to, if you remember from Kendo documentation, anything between hash equal to is going to be rendered as HTML. So I just selected the country flag column as the data source and included it as an image under the image control in this case. Next, as I mentioned, country flag has been rendered as a data source which was used in the previous template, and I marked it as hidden. Salary, again, I'm going to use templating feature. In this case, I have used the third syntax where I'm rendering it based on certain conditions. And I'm saying if the salary is available, put a dollar sign right in front of it. So hash dollar and then hash colon the value of the salary. Similarly, age, I just left it as is because we want to render it as an integer. So I didn't change anything. Target cells, in this case, I'm going to go a little bit advanced. Till now, you have seen me only render data with inline binding within that template. Now I'm going to supply some values using JavaScript. In this case, what I've done is I've put a div ID over here. I provided the column which will hold the value, the data source, target sales underscore u. But for the class, I've implemented it as a sparkline chart, which you'll see how I provide the templating for this using JavaScript. And I've done the same thing for employee rating. Over here, I've just provided a class called rating.com and a style, and we are going to feed the values using JavaScript in this case. The last one is available. Again, if you remember, this was a Boolean value. I'm going to render it using conditional statement. So I put a hash. If is available is true, then render the class ag icon tick, else we render the other class which is ag icon cross. So instead of rendering it as true and false, it should be rendering an image which will be coming from my CSS class which is mentioned over here. So you can mention your CSS class as well in this case. Now, as far as the JavaScript is concerned, if you remember for Kendo sparkline control as well as rating control, I was feeding values through JavaScript. So I'm going to go to JavaScript in this case. edit it. And as you can see, I have subscribed to an event on data bound for the data grid control. And in this case, what I'm doing is for the rating control, it is pretty simple. We say find the rating control where class equal to this, and for the rated method, we just provided the value from the individual data item. So it's just this much, and it is reading the value of employee rating and passing it to the rated function, which is getting rendered in the rating control. For Sparkline, again pretty much a similar thing. We have hidden the legend. We provided the data using the individual rows data item, which is target sales. If you remember, that was referenced in the configuration of the template. And then we specify the type as bar, chart area as height, margin, width. So certain properties, the color sequences which have to be used have been all mentioned over here. Similarly, for the CSS, if I go to CSS, in this case, I have mentioned few CSS over here, one for the photo to get rendered and the name, and the two icons. If you remember, the Boolean values have been changed to images. So here are the image files which are there, and I've set their height and width and accordingly in this case. So these are the classes which we are using for the templates. And using all of that, if you now do preview once more, you can see here is the result which is coming out. Using some CSS, some templating, and for this one, I was using JavaScript to show you how you can bind the data to individual columns using JavaScript as well. So you can see all the variations over here. Also, the Boolean value has been converted into an image in this case. Now that was from a templating feature perspective. If I go back to the designer, there are other features which have been enabled as well. So if you go to advanced, now you see you can enable reordering of columns, and you can specify whether the column reordering should be persisted across form sessions. Similarly, you already had enabled filtering, but you can now persist the filtering across form sessions as well. We are going to see these three properties: persist filtering, enable column reordering, and persist column order. So what we are going to do is we are going to go to Work Center, My Apps. I published this application, so I'm going to bring it up. Right now it is showing me 5 rows. I can always reorder these columns and move them around. So as you can see, the age and salary columns have been moved around before the country. I'm going to apply some filtering as well. I'm going to say target sales is greater than 40%. So now I have only 2 rows. I'm going to go ahead and submit it. So that means my form session has ended. But because I mentioned to persist these values across form sessions, if I click on it again, you can see by default it is showing me only 2 rows, and the column ordering has been persisted as well. So with this, we come to the end of this demo. As you can see, now you can reorder the columns, persist it across sessions, and also create more visually appealing data grid controls using the column templating feature. Thanks a lot for your time.